this happens all the time. I'm like, oh, I'm a sex worker. People are like, oh, are you okay? Like, are you worried about the downsides, you know? And I'm like, nobody ever said that to me when I worked at the factory, which was way worse for my mental health. I was like drinking to cope. I never had a drink to cope with being a sex worker.
Let's say I go to my secretary and I say to her, your job description currently is to make coffee, to run my diary, to book appointments, blah, 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 blah. However, I'm going to double your salary if we modify your job description to include the following sex acts. Mm-hmm. You think that's a perfectly reasonable thing of an employer to offer an employee? I
think it should be allowed, yeah. Like, because she can say no, right?
I am so tired of arguments like this that claim prostitution is the same as any other job. This video points out that if sex work is just completely normal work, then that means any man in any office can ask a woman to perform sex acts for a raise. When taken to its logical extreme, the sex work is work argument eventually ends in non-prostitutes getting sexually harassed. Because prostitution is presented as being harmless so often nowadays, today I will be critiquing the most famous prostitution movie of all time from an anti-prostitution yet feminist standpoint. The movie is called Pretty Woman, and it was distributed by Disney. It's a romantic comedy made in 1990. It glamorizes prostitution, and it's very similar to the movie Anora in story structure. Both movies are about a prostitute who gets hired by a wealthy man to accompany him for a week. Ever wonder what it would be like if Anora was so much worse? Me neither, but you should watch my video anyways. I will be analyzing Pretty Woman through a radical feminist or sex worker exclusionary radical feminist lens. Basically, we swerfs argue that prostitution is dangerous and objectifying. We are different from conservatives in that we focus most of our efforts on helping women leave prostitution, rather than on making personal attacks towards the morality of prostitutes. And we hold sex buyers accountable for their predatory behaviors. Before we begin, a quick introduction. My name is Mariana, and on my channel I dissect film, television, and video games from a radical feminist perspective. So if this interests you, please consider subscribing. And a quick spoiler warning for a 35-year-old movie. The movie begins at an upper-class business party in Los Angeles. Edward Lewis, a millionaire finance bro, is being dumped by his girlfriend for, well, let's just say, for not exactly being a golden retriever boyfriend. He is so focused on his work that his now ex-girlfriend spoke to his secretary more than him.
I told my secretary to make the arrangements. Didn't she call you?
Yes, she did. I speak to your secretary more than I speak to you.
And this is a pattern, as his ex-wife had the same problem.
Heard you got married.
Well, yeah, I couldn't wait for you.
Susan, tell me something.
Yes.
When you and I were dating, did you speak to my secretary more than you spoke to me?
She was one of my bridesmaids.
Not only is Edward a neglectful partner, he's an unethical businessman. He's a corporate raider, which means that he buys stocks in struggling companies. Once he buys the stocks, he then owns a large part of the struggling companies, and he uses his power to fire people and to break up those companies into smaller parts to sell off. It's a predatory practice that destroys struggling companies and the hard work of business owners. Edward isn't rich because he built useful goods or services. The main character, Vivian Ward, is a prostitute struggling to pay rent. The first shot we ever see of her in the movie is a close-up of her behind when she is wearing underwear in her apartment. Prostitutes tend to be objectified even more than non-prostitutes in movies. Normal romantic comedies, even male-written ones, usually would not have an ass close-up as the first shot for the main character. Vivian and her friend go to the Hollywood Walk of Fame to find male clients.
Maybe we should get a pimp, you know. Carlos really digs you. And then he'll run our lives and take our money. No, you're right. We say who, we say when, we say how much.
It's true that pimps are exploitative and controlling, though prostituting without a pimp is still dangerous. Shortly after, Vivian gets in some random guy's car, which is crazy. I mean, this guy could be a criminal for all she knows. Because this is a movie, however, the guy turns out to be Edward Lewis, the millionaire from earlier, who is looking for directions to West Hollywood. Vivian offers to help him by giving directions for a $20 fee. On the car ride, Edward admits that he borrowed the car from his friend and doesn't know how to drive it. Vivian has extensive expertise in cars.
Man, this baby must corner like it's on rails.
Beg your pardon?
Doesn't it blow your mind? This is only 4 cylinders.
You know about cars. Where'd that come from?
Road and track? Boys back home I grew up with, they were really into American heavy metal, Mustangs, Corvettes. They bought them cheap and fixed them up. I paid attention. So how is it you know so little about cars?
My first car was a limousine.
Normally, this would be considered feminist. However, based on the energy of the scene, as well as the ass close-up from earlier, the filmmakers' intent was not feminist. They wanted to make Vivian seem more appealing to men by making her like similar things. Basically, cool girl trope. The cool girl trope is when filmmakers make a female character have stereotypically male interests, not for gender-critical reasons, but to make men like her more. Women should have practical knowledge of cars and go against femininity stereotypes. But that's clearly not why the filmmakers included this detail. When they arrive at his hotel, Edward invites Vivian up to his penthouse suite. Here, the filmmakers try to make Edward seem like a gentleman. They paint him as a hardworking man who doesn't drink or do drugs. They also make him seem less promiscuous than he is by making him say, "Why don't we just talk for a little bit?" before they have sex later that night.
Why don't we just talk for a little bit, okay?
And when they do have sex, the filmmakers end the scene very quickly, not showing any of it because they don't want Edward to seem like the type of lustful pervert that people usually think sex buyers are. They don't end the scene quickly because of modesty, because much later in the film, when the filmmakers have had more time to paint Edward in a good light, the sex scenes drag on for way too long. This unrealistic framing of sex buyers glorifies prostitution. All sex buyers in reality are unattractive weirdos of low character. All sex buyers think that they have the right to buy a woman's body like cattle. They do not have modesty, let alone the restraint to refrain from sex, much less alcohol and drugs. Men who have restraint do not hire prostitutes. The next day, Edward pays Vivian $3,000 to accompany him to company events for a week, as he will look better if he has a woman next to him.
I will pay you to be at my beck and call. I want a professional. I don't need any romantic hassles this week.
This is similar to Honora, where the son of a billionaire hires Honora as a prostitute for a week. Edward takes Vivian to a business dinner with the creators of a struggling company. During the dinner, it becomes clear that Edward intends to exploit and destroy the company, despite the fact that the creators of the company are good, hardworking people. By the way, later in the movie, Edward is also shown using dishonest business tactics. The creators of the struggling company succeed in getting military contracts that will help save their company, but Edward tries to interfere with the contract and cancel it. Later that night, Edward expresses regret over his career.
You and I are such similar creatures, Vivian. We both screw people for money.
But just because he is remorseful doesn't make him deserving of sympathy if he already has ruined all those lives and made millions off of it. At the end of the day, actions matter more than guilty feelings or words. Vivian continues to have sex with him, and the next day, Edward takes Vivian to the most expensive shopping area in Los Angeles to buy clothing. This movie, like pretty much every mainstream prostitution movie, lies about how much money prostitutes make. In real life, most prostitutes make below minimum wage. In the movie, Vivian not only makes $3,000 a week, but she also gets several bags of clothing from Rodeo Drive. Rodeo Drive is a street in LA that exclusively sells extremely expensive brands like Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and Prada. The average clothing garment is a couple $1,000s. Judging by how many bags she is carrying, Edward probably paid at least $80,000, but probably more.
We're going to be spending an obscene amount of money in here.
Yeah, exactly how obscene an amount of money were you talking about? Just profane or really offensive?
Really offensive.
Edward and Vivian go to a polo match, where two women confirm that he is indeed a male 304.
So you're the flavor of the month.
Hi, Philip Stuckey, baby. This is my wife, Elizabeth.
It's always a pleasure meeting one of Edward's girls.
During this part of the story, the filmmakers also add this bald guy, who later attempts to assault Vivian, to make Edward look more virtuous by comparison. The Mr. Clean lookalike is Edward's lawyer, and after the polo match, Edward and Vivian get into an argument over his creepy behavior. In this scene, Edward acts like he owns Vivian and calls her cheap.
I'm very sorry. I'm not happy with Stuckey at all for saying that or doing that.
What are you, my pimp now? You know, you think you can just pass me around to your friends? I'm not some little toy.
I hate to point out the obvious, but you are in fact a hooker, and you are my employee.
You don't own me, I decide, okay? I say who, I say when, I say who!
I refuse to spend the next 3 days fighting with you. I said I was sorry, I meant it.
I've never had anyone make me feel as cheap as you did today.
Somehow I find that very hard to believe.
They soon make up.
You hurt me.
Yes.
Don't do it again.
Realistically, though, a man of Edward's low character most likely would hurt her again. The two later share more personal information with each other. Vivian says that the first time she was a prostitute, she cried the entire time, and that despite the fact that her friend told her that prostitution would be amazing and empowering, it was not.
I couldn't make the rent. I was too ashamed to go home. That's when I met Kit. She was a hooker and made it sound so great. So one day I did it. I cried the whole time.
The movie is not pro-prostitution nor liberal feminist like Honora, and both Vivian and her friends stop being prostitutes to pursue higher education in the end. However, the movie as a whole is not necessarily intended to be radical feminist either. After going on more dates, Vivian expresses her wish to be a princess in a fairy tale who is rescued by a man.
When I was a little girl, my mama used to lock me in the attic when I was bad, which was pretty often. And I would pretend I was a princess trapped in the tower by a wicked queen. And then suddenly, this knight on a white horse with these colors flying would come charging up and draw his sword. And I would wave, and he would climb up the tower and rescue me.
Edward is unwilling to give Vivian the commitment and attention of a full relationship, and instead offers her a nice place to stay and occasional visits. He claims he cannot spend more time with her because his job is busy. Vivian says that she is being treated like this because she is a prostitute. Edward then says this line.
It's a really good offer for a girl like me.
I've never treated you like a prostitute.
Wait, let's rewind.
No, I was thinking, did you really say $100 an hour?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you don't have any prior engagements, I'd be very pleased if you would accompany me into the hotel.
Baby, I'm gonna treat you so nice, you're never gonna wanna let me go.
3,000 for 6 days. And Vivian, I will let you go.
But you are, in fact, a hooker.
I've never had anyone make me feel as cheap as you did today.
Somehow I find that very hard to believe.
So I guess he's just a liar then. In a business meeting, Edward decides to change his ways because of Vivian's influence. He saves the struggling company from before and decides to work together with the creators of the company to build ships for the military. This movie pushes the narrative that bad men can change because of love. In reality, though, this is an extremely uncommon occurrence. And this type of thinking makes women more likely to end up in Netflix crime documentaries rather than romantic comedies. Pretty much all of the time, you can't change someone else. And thinking you can results in a toxic relationship with a subpar partner. Also, just because he did one good thing doesn't mean he has changed his ways permanently and doesn't undo the damage he already did to other companies prior to this. Vivian dumps Edward. After some time, Edward realizes that he does want a full relationship with Vivian, and he goes to her apartment. He climbs the fire escape up to her apartment, an analogy to the fairy tale fantasy Vivian described earlier of being a princess trapped in her tower, with a knight climbing up to save her. The two are reunited, and the film ends. The structure of the story in Pretty Woman is meant to resemble a fairy tale.
I want the fairy tale.
For example, one of the main characters is this hotel manager. He works at the hotel where Edward and Vivian stay in for the majority of the movie. His role is analogous to a fairy godmother. He is the one who gets Vivian her dress for her first business date with Edward, and he also teaches her how to have high-class manners.
Dinner napkin?
Dinner napkin, lay gently in the lap.
Good. Elbows off the table. Don't slouch. Shrimp fork. Salad fork. Dinner fork.
The actor who played him did such an effective job in this role that he was later hired for a similar mentor-like role in Princess Diaries, a movie about an ordinary girl who is transformed Cinderella-style into a princess.
When walking in a crowd, one is under scrutiny all the time. So we don't slump like this. We drop the shoulders, we think tall. Princesses never cross their legs in public. Why don't you just tuck one ankle behind the other and place the hands gracefully on the knees? Manners matter. But enough etiquette for the day. Now, Genovia does a lot of trade with Spain, so we prepare for that.
Sorry.
The quickest way to a Spanish heart is dance.
Shall we? Now tell me, what kind of dancing do you do?
Dancing? Oh, just normal kind, you know, like bounce.
I see. We have a Genovian alternative. Now, the dance is here.
Okay.
Very sedate, right from the hips. In place. No bobbing of the head, please. And it's not a doggy on a dashboard. Straight up. Let's practice this here. All right, now, this dance is between a waltz and a tango, you see?
This movie encourages women to be naive. Many men have terrible character, and fairy tales make women too trusting. Dating requires vigilance, something that fairy tales reject. Also, whether you are male or female, hoping that someone else will save you from your life or your bad financial situation is not a healthy mindset. That being said, the movie does criticize transactional romantic relationships to an extent because Edward and Vivian end up in a relationship, and because Edward chooses Vivian over his job. Which is nice, but not nearly enough for me personally to see it as a good movie. The movie essentially made prostitution into a fairy tale. It made a practice that very often results in sexual assault or death into a fairy tale. The movie made a sex buyer into a knight in shining armor. It made a pervert who thinks it's okay to coerce a poverty-stricken woman into a knight in shining armor. I want to reiterate that this is the most famous prostitution movie of all time. Although the movie's tone is a far departure from liberal feminists who push a pro-prostitution agenda, its politics are similar for glamorizing prostitution and making it seem better than it actually is. The movie also does nothing to shame male promiscuity. Furthermore, although romantic storytelling when done right is captivating, fairy tales aren't romantic. They're not a realistic portrayal of love with all its flaws. Fairy tales are surface level and don't show how healthy love exists in the real world. It might seem counterintuitive, but true love cannot exist in a fairy tale world. Before I end this video, I want to mention that I recently made a radical feminist section on my Discord server. I've noticed that there is a lack of community, specifically for radfem video gamers, so I'm making one. Here, you'll be able to find like-minded women to game with and discuss politics as well. Though even if you're not into video games, you're still welcome. To join, you first need to make a Discord account. Then, click on the Discord link in the description below the video. Click Accept Invite. Verify your phone number near the bottom of the screen. Then click the Verify channel and unlock the server. Once you do that, scroll down to the How to Join channel of the Feminist Hangout section and follow the instructions. This section will be women only, and we will have a verification process similar to other radfem Discord servers. My YouTube channel is still pretty small, so the server might be dead for the first couple of weeks, but hopefully after a while, enough people will join the server for it to be active. Happy gaming, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.